You're a hard-working waitress, scraping by on tips and dealing with a nightmare boss who treats you like dirt. One night, a scruffy-looking guy leaves his wallet behind. You chase him down to return it, no questions asked. But your boss? He accuses you of theft and fires you on the spot. Little did you know, that bum was a secret millionaire and he was about to turn the tables in the most satisfying way possible. If you've ever been undervalued, disrespected, or straight up wronged at work, and dreamed of that sweet moment when karma hits back hard, then you're in the right place. Hit that like button if you're ready for some serious justice. Subscribe for more Reddit revenge tales that'll make your blood pump. And let's dive into this story that'll have you cheering by the end. Let me set the scene for you. Our protagonist, let's call her Emily, was 24, fresh out of community college, and busting her butt at an upscale Italian restaurant called Bella Vista in downtown Chicago. The place had that faux elegant vibe, dim lights, crisp white tablecloths, the faint aroma of garlic and fresh basil wafting from the kitchen. But behind the scenes, it was a pressure cooker. Emily's shifts were grueling 8-10 hours on her feet, dodging spilled wine and demanding customers who tipped like misers. Her boss, Mr. Harlan Eo, this guy was a piece of work. Picture a balding man in his 50s, with a perpetual scowl etched into his face, sweat stains under his arms from yelling at the staff. He ruled the restaurant like a petty tyrant, docking pay for the smallest infractions, like if a plate came back with a complaint or if you took an extra minute in the bathroom. You're replaceable, he'd bark, his voice echoing off the stainless steel counters. Emily had felt the sting more than once. One time, after a 12-hour double shift, her feet throbbing like they'd been hammered, she asked for a measly day off to visit her sick mom. Harlan laughed, actually laughed right in her face. Family, that's not my problem. Show up or don't come back. Her stomach twisted in knots, a hot flush of humiliation creeping up her neck. Inside, she screamed, "Why do I put up with this? But bills don't pay themselves, right?" Rent was due, student loans loomed like storm clouds, and every night she'd collapse into bed, her mind racing with thoughts of escape, but feeling trapped in that powerless cycle. The customers weren't always better, entitled suits who snapped their fingers for refills, or groups of drunk businessmen who leered and left pennies as tips. Emily kept her head down, smiling through gritted teeth, because that's what you do when you're the underdog and you survive. But deep down, that resentment simmered, a quiet fire of injustice burning brighter with each shift. Then came that fateful Tuesday night. The restaurant was packed, the hum of conversations blending with the clink of silverware and the sizzle from the open kitchen. Emily was in the zone, balancing trays like a pro, her apron stained with marinara. At table 12 sat a lone diner, an older guy, maybe in his 60s, dressed in rumpled clothes, faded jeans, a worn flannel shirt, scruffy beard. He looked out of place among the polished crowd, like he'd wandered in from the street. He ordered the cheapest pasta on the menu, ate quietly, and tipped modestly. No fuss, no complaints. As he left, Emily noticed something on the floor under his chair, a battered leather wallet, bulging slightly at the seams. Her heart skipped. Someone's whole life could be in there, she thought. IDs, cards, maybe cash for rent. Without hesitation, she scooped it up and bolted out the door, the cool night air hitting her like a slap. "Sir, wait," she called, spotting him shuffling down the sidewalk. He turned, surprise flickering in his eyes as she handed it over. "You dropped this." "I didn't look inside, I swear." He mumbled a thank you, his voice gruff but kind, and that was that. Back inside, Emily felt a small glow of pride. At least she'd done something right in this scrappy job. But oh, how quickly things soured. Harlan had seen her dash out. He cornered her in the back room, his face red as a tomato, veins bulging in his neck. What the hell was that? Chasing after some bum? You trying to steal from customers now? Emily's jaw dropped, her pulse racing. "No, I was returning his wallet. I found it on the floor." Harlan sneered, leaning in so close she could smell his cheap cologne mixed with cigar smoke. "Likely story. I've got my eye on you girls, always scheming. Pack your things, you're fired." Her world spun. Tears pricked her eyes, but she bit them back, her fists clenching at her sides. "This isn't fair." Her mind roared, I did the right thing. She stormed out, the door slamming behind her, the city lights blurring through hot, angry tears. That night, alone in her tiny apartment, the walls closing in, Emily replayed it all, the disrespect, the false accusation, the powerlessness. Someday, she vowed, staring at the ceiling, someday I'll make him regret this. Little did she know, fate was already in motion. The bum she'd helped, his name was Victor Langford, a self-made millionaire who'd built a real estate empire from nothing. Worth over $50 million, he owned half the buildings in the neighborhood, including, unbeknownst to the staff, a silent stake in Bella Vista. Victor had a habit of going undercover, dressing down to test people's true character. He'd lost his wallet on purpose that night, a little experiment to see who in the restaurant had integrity. And Emily, she'd passed with flying colors. But Harlan, Victor had overheard his tirades from the dining room, seen the way he belittled the staff. It lit a fire in Victor Rain, memories of his own early days, scraping by, being kicked when he was down. No one deserves that, he thought, gripping the returned wallet tighter. The next morning, Emily's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hello? She answered, her voice weary from a sleepless night. It was Victor, his tone warm and steady. Young lady, you returned my wallet last night. I'd like to thank you properly. Meet me at the restaurant at noon. Confused but curious, she agreed. What did she have to lose? Her hands trembled as she dressed, a mix of nerves and defiance bubbling inside. If this is some creep, I'm out, she told herself. She arrived to find the place closed for a private meeting. Harlan was there, pacing like a caged animal, sweat beading on his forehead. Victor stood tall, now in a sharp suit, exuding quiet authority. Emily's eyes widened. This was no bum. Emily, Victor said, shaking her hand firmly, I'm Victor Langford, partial owner of this establishment. I saw what happened last night. You showed honesty when it mattered. Harlan here, not so much. Harlan's face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. What, owner? I didn't know. Victor cut him off, his voice like steel. That's the point. You treat people like garbage based on appearances. I've reviewed the book. Say you've been skimming tips, underpaying staff. Effective immediately. You're out. Harlan sputtered, rage twisting his features. You can't do this. I've run this place for years. Victor smiled coldly. Watch me. Security's waiting. As Harlan was escorted out, kicking and cursing, his empire crumbling in seconds, Emily stood frozen, her heart pounding in her ears. The shock on his face, that smug scowl replaced by wide-eyed panic. It was everything she'd fantasized about. Victor turned to her, his eyes kind. Emily, how'd you like to manage this place? Full salary, benefits, and a stake in the profits. Tears streamed down her face now, not of pain, but pure, exhilarating relief. She nodded, a triumphant laugh escaping her lips. In that moment, the weight lifted, a validation washing over her like a warm wave. Justice, sweet and swift. Stories like this remind us that karma doesn't always take forever. Sometimes it strikes when you least expect it. It's a nudge to treat people with respect, no matter who they seem to be, because you never know who's watching. What goes around really does come around. Phew. If that revenge gave you those satisfying chills, in the dim glow of the restaurant's closing lights, Sarah wiped down the last table, her feet aching from the 10-hour shift. The place was a mid-tier diner in the heart of the city, where the air always smelled of greasy fries and overbrewed coffee. She was 28, single, and barely making ends meet, dreaming of something better but stuck in the grind. That night, a quiet customer in a threadbare coat had sat in the corner booth, nursing a black coffee and a slice of pie. He paid in cash, left a modest tip, and shuffled out onto the rain. Only after he was gone did Sarah spot the worn leather wallet on the seat. Without a second thought, she grabbed it and dashed outside, the cold drizzle soaking her uniform. Sir, you forgot this, she called, catching up to him a block away. He turned, surprise etching his weathered face, and took it with a mumbled thanks. Back inside, her boss, Mr. Gradia, a burly man with a perpetual sneer and a habit of barking orders, cornered her. What the hell were you doing out there, stealing from patrons now? His accusation hit like a slap. Sarah protested, explaining the truth. But Grady fired her on the spot, convinced she'd been up to no good. Humiliated and jobless, she trudged home, the wallet incident fading into just another bad day. Little did she know, the man she'd helped was no ordinary drifter. The man, Elias Hawthorne, wasn't just any stranger. He was a reclusive millionaire, his fortune built from savvy tech investments in the 90s that had ballooned into a 9-figure empire. At 62, he'd long since retired from the spotlight, preferring anonymity to the flash of wealth. He owned properties across the city, including silent stakes in small businesses like the diner where Sarah worked. Elias had a peculiar habit: he tested people's character by losing his wallet in public places, filled with just enough cash and cards to tempt, but tracked with a hidden GPS. It was his way of weeding out the dishonest from the kind-hearted, a quirk born from his own rags-to-riches story where betrayal had nearly derailed him early on. That train night, Elias had watched from afar as Sarah chased him down, her genuine concern shining through the storm. He'd felt a spark of warmth in his usually guarded heart, reminding him of his late sister, who had always put others first. But when he circled back to the diner later, disguised in the shadows, he overheard Grady's tirade through the cracked window. The boss's voice boomed, laced with venom. "Girls like you think you can pull one over on me? Get out before I call the cops." Sarah's pleas fell on deaf ears, her shoulders slumping as she gathered her things. Elias clenched his fists, a surge of anger rising. He'd seen too many power-hungry types like Grady crush the little guy it hit too close to home. The next morning, Elias sat in his modest home, a fascia, a stark contrast to his wealth, with simple oak furniture and walls lined with books on philosophy and human nature. He sipped his coffee, replaying the scene. She didn't hesitate, he thought. No peeking inside, no demand for a reward, pure decency. Grady, on the other hand, embodied everything Elias despised: arrogance masked as authority, preying on the vulnerable. Elias decided then to intervene. It wasn't just about helping Sarah, it was about balancing the scales, delivering a lesson in humility that Grady would never forget. First, Elias dug into the diner's background. A quick call to his lawyer revealed that he held a 40% stake through a shell company, acquired years ago in a bulk real estate deal. The majority owner was a distant investor, but Elias's influence was enough to pull strings. He spent the afternoon poring over financials Grady had been scamming, underreporting tips to pocket extras, and fostering a toxic environment that led to high turnover. Complaints from former employees painted a picture of harassment and unfair firings. Elias's blood boiled. This wasn't just one incident, it was a pattern. By evening, Elias had a plan. He contacted Sarah via the number on her resume, which he'd obtained through a discreet background check, not to invade her privacy, but to verify her story. Her phone rang as she sat in her cramped apartment, scrolling job listings with the knot of anxiety in her stomach. "Hello?" She answered warily. Elias introduced himself plainly. "I'm the man from last night, the wallet. I'd like to meet you tomorrow at the diner, noon. It's important." Sarah hesitated, her mind racing with doubts. Was this a scam, a creep? But something in his steady voice compelled her. She agreed, figuring she had nothing left to lose. The following day, the diner buzzed with its usual lunch rush, but Elias had arranged for it to clear out early under the guise of a private event. Grady, oblivious, barked to orders at the remaining staff, his face flushed from the morning's coffee. When Sarah walked in, her chin held high despite the butterflies in her gut, Grady's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here?" "I told you." Before he could finish, Elias entered, now dressed in a tailored suit that screamed quiet power, his scruffy beard trimmed, revealing sharp features. "Mr. Grady," Elias said calmly, extending a hand that Grady ignored. "I'm Elias Hawthorne, partial owner of this establishment." The room fell silent. Grady's jaw slackened, confusion morphing into panic. Sarah stood frozen, piecing it together. The bum from the rain was this polished man? Elias continued, his voice measured but firm. "I witnessed your treatment of Miss Sarah last night. Unjust, unfounded. I've reviewed the operations here, skimming tips, harassing employees." "It's over," Grady sputtered, his face turning beet red. "Owner? I don't believe it. You've got no proof." Elias pulled out a folder, slamming it on the counter. "Bank statements, employee testimonies, even security footage from a camera Grady didn't know existed. "This is your proof. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." Two burly men appeared from the back, summoned by Elias's team. Grady lunged for the folder, rage contorting his features, but they restrained him. "You can't do this. This is my diner," he yelled, spittle flying. As he was dragged away, kicking and cursing, the staff watched in stunned silence, a mix of relief and awe washing over them. Sarah's heart pounded, a whirlwind of emotions: a shock, vindication, a bubbling joy she hadn't felt in years. Elias turned to her, his eyes kind. "Miss Sarah, you've shown more integrity in one act than this man has in a lifetime. I'd like to offer you the manager position, full benefits, a salary bump, and profit sharing. What do you say?" Tears welled in her eyes, not from sorrow, but from the sheer weight of justice lifting off her shoulders. She nodded, whispering, "Yes, thank you." But Elias wasn't done. He saw potential in Sarah beyond the diner. Over the next weeks, as she settled into her new role, he mentored her quietly. Meetings in his office became routine, where he'd share stories of his climb from poverty, orphaned young, working odd jobs, betting everything on early internet stocks. "It's not about the money," he'd say, leaning back in his chair, the scent of aged leather filling the air. "It's about choices. You chose kindness when it cost you." Sarah absorbed it all, her confidence growing. She revamped the diner, fair wages, team-building shifts, a menu refresh that drew crowds. Tips soared, morale skyrocketed, former employees returned, sharing horror stories of Grady that only fueled her determination. Meanwhile, Grady's downfall spiraled. Word spread through the industry. Elias ensured it, tipping off contacts about the skimming. Grady couldn't land another job. Applications were met with silence or outright rejections. He ended up in a dingy bar across town, serving drinks himself, his ego shattered. One night, drowning his sorrows, he spotted a news blurb on the TV, the diner thriving under new management, Sarah's smiling face in a local feature. He slammed his glass down, the bitterness twisting like a knife. Elias, watching from afar, felt a quiet satisfaction, but his involvement deepened. He introduced Sarah to his network of investors, entrepreneurs. "You've got a spark," he told her during a walk in the park, leaves crunching underfoot, the autumn air crisp. "Let's fan it." She enrolled in business classes, funded by Elias, balancing work and study. Nights blurred into study sessions, her apartment lit by laptop glow, fingers flying over keys as she drafted plans for expansion. Months turned to a year. The diner became a chain of 3 locations, then 5. Sarah's vision: affordable, heartfelt food with a community focus. Elias provided seed capital, but insisted she lead. "This is yours," he said as the grand opening of the second spot, clinking glasses amid cheers. The event was electric, as string lights twinkling, laughter echoing, the aroma of fresh-baked bread drawing numbers. Sarah stood on stage, microphone in hand, her voice steady. "This started with a simple act of returning a wallet, but it's about more, believing in people." Elias beamed from the crowd, pride swelling. Yet, challenges arose. Competitors poached staff, supply costs spiked. Sarah faced her first crisis when a supplier shorted them, threatening a big event. Pacing her office, sweat beading on her brow, she recalled Elias's advice: adapt or perish. She negotiated fiercely, securing a better deal, turning the setback into savings. Growth brought personal trials to a long hours strained friendships, a budding romance fizzled under pressure. Lying awake, doubts crept in. Am I cut out for this? But mornings brought resolve, fueled by the memory of that rainy night. Elias's health waned. A checkup revealed heart issues. "Time catches us all," he confided over tea, his hands trembling slightly. Sarah visited often, bringing meals, sharing updates. Their bond deepened, like family. "You've given me purpose again," he admitted, eyes misty. In turn, she helped him reconnect with estranged relatives, organizing a reunion that mended old wounds. As the chain hit 10 locations, Sarah reflected on her journey. From powerless waitress to CEO, it was surreal. At a gala, dressed in elegant silk, she accepted an award for women in business. Flash bulbs popped, applause thundered. Spotting Elias in the audience, frail but smiling, She dedicated it to him, to the man who saw worth where others saw nothing. Grady, by then, was a ghost of himself, broke, isolated, regretting every harsh word. A chance encounter at a coffee shop, he bumped into Sarah, now poised and successful. "You?" he muttered, eyes wide. She smiled politely. "Life's full of surprises." Walking away, empowerment surged through her. Elias passed peacefully that winter, leaving her a portion of his estate, not out of pity, but trust. His will read, "To Sarah, who reminded me of humanity's best." She honored him with a foundation aiding underpaid workers, channeling profits to scholarships. Years later, Sarah sat in her flagship diner, now a bustling hub. A young waitress returned a customer's lost phone. Echoing her past, Sarah watched, smiling. The cycle of kindness continued, proving that one act could ripple into a tidal wave of change. Her life, once defined by struggle, now brimmed with purpose, a testament to unseen fortunes and earned triumphs. The rain was relentless, drumming against the cracked windows of Dino's Diner, a greasy spoon tucked in a forgotten corner of Philadelphia. Mia, a 26-year-old waitress with tired eyes and a stubborn streak, was wiping down sticky counters at 1 a.m. Her shift had been brutal. Rude customers, spilled coffee, and a measly $12 in tips. Her boss, Tony Russo, was the worst of it, a loudmouth with a temper, always talking pay for petty reasons like a smudged glass or a late clock-in. That night, a lone customer sat at the far booth, a scruffy guy in a faded hoodie, his face shadowed under a baseball cap. He ordered a burger, ate slowly, and left a crumpled $5 as a tip. When Mia cleared his table, she found a worn leather wallet wedged between the seat cushions. She didn't think twice. Grabbing her jacket, she sprinted into the storm, her sneakers splashing through puddles. "Hey, you forgot this!" she shouted, catching him halfway down the block. He turned, startled, his eyes meeting hers with a flicker of surprise. "Thanks, kid," he muttered, taking the wallet and vanishing into the rain. Back inside, soaked and shivering, Mia barely had time to dry off before Tony stormed over, his face red. "What's this?" Sneaking off to pocket cash from wallets, her stomach dropped. "I was returning it," she snapped, but Tony wasn't hearing it. "You're done here, Mia. Get out." Humiliation burned her throat as she grabbed her bag, the other waitresses avoiding her gaze. She walked home, rain mixing with tears, vowing never to let someone like Tony break her again. The man with the wallet was Leonard Lan Caldwell, a 58-year-old tech mogul who'd turned a single software patent into a $200 million fortune. Lan was a ghost in the public eye, living simply despite his wealth, owning stakes in dozens of businesses through proxies. He had a ritual, dropping his wallet in random spots at bars, diners, gas stations loaded with $200 cash and a fake ID, testing people's honesty. It was a game born from his past, when a business partner swindled him out of his first big break, leaving him cynical about human nature. Mia's act of chasing him down, no questions asked, struck a chord. It reminded him of his younger self, scraping by, hoping for fairness in a cutthroat world. Len didn't leave the diner right away. Lingering across the street, rain streaking his cap, he saw everything through the diner's fogged-up window: Tony's red-faced rant, Mia's clenched fists, the way she stormed out, head high despite the defeat. Len's jaw tightened. He'd heard Tony's type before, bullies who thrived on power trips. Digging into his coat, he checked the wallet's GPS tracker. Mia hadn't touched the cash. "She's one of the good ones," he thought, a rare warmth cutting through his usual skepticism. Tony, though, Len had overheard his insults all night, barking at staff like a drill sergeant. It stirred memories of his own humiliations, fueling a quiet resolve. Tony Russo was about to learn a lesson. By dawn, Len was in his downtown loft, a minimalist space with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. His laptop hummed as he pulled up records. Through a holding company, he owned 35% of Dino's Diner, part of a real estate portfolio he'd amassed in the early 2000s. A few calls to his private investigator confirmed Tony's reputation: complaints of wage theft, verbal abuse, even a hushed-up harassment claim from a former cook. The diner's books were a mess. Tony was skimming tips, fudging taxes, and pocketing vendor kickbacks. Len leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking, a slow smile forming. This guy's begging for a reckoning. His plan came together fast. First, he reached out to Mia. Finding her number was easy. Tony kept sloppy employee records on an unsecured server. Mia was sprawled on her couch, scrolling job boards, her savings dwindling to $300. The call from an unknown number made her tense. "Hello?" she answered, bracing for a bill collector. Len's voice was calm, gravelly. "Mia, I'm the guy from last night. The wallet. Can we meet at the diner tomorrow, 11 a.m.? Her gut screamed caution, but his tone wasn't threatening. "Okay," she said, curiosity outweighing fear. What's the worst that could happen? The next morning, Dino's was oddly quiet. The neon open sign dark. Tony was there, pacing, his shirt stained with sweat. Mia walked in, her heart thudding, expecting a confrontation. Instead, Len entered behind her, now in a crisp blazer, his scruffy demeanor gone. The air shifted. "Tony Russo," Len said, voice like ice. "I'm Leonard Caldwell, part owner of this dive." Tony froze, his smirk fading. Mia's eyes widened. "A part owner?" Len didn't pause. "I saw what you did to Mia, accusing her of theft for doing the right thing. That's just the start. I've got records of your tip scamming, your tax games. You're finished." Tony's face went from red to ghostly white. "You can't. You don't have the authority," he stammered. Len slid a tablet across the counter, opened to a spreadsheet of Tony's financial misdeeds, time-stamped emails from vendors, and a signed affidavit from the harassed cook. "This says I do." Security's outside. "Pack your crap." Two men in black jackets appeared, their presence final. Tony lunged for the tablet, shouting, "This is my place." But they grabbed his arms. His curses echoed as he was dragged out, the door slamming shut. The remaining staff of two cooks and a busboy stood speechless, their eyes darting between Len and Mia. Len turned to her, softening. "Mia, you showed integrity when it wasn't easy. I want you running this place. Manager's salary, benefits, and a 10% profit share." Interested? Her breath caught, a wave of relief crashing over her. She nodded, tears prickling, her voice a whisper. Yes. The moment felt surreal, like a dream where the underdog finally wins. Tony's downfall was sweet, but this was life-changing. Len didn't stop at firing Tony. He saw something in Mia, a grit, heart, a spark he'd lost in himself years ago. Over coffee the next day, in a quiet corner of the revamped diner, he shared his story. A kid from a rough neighborhood, coding in a library basement, betrayed by a partner who stole his first startup. "You remind me of me," he said, stirring his coffee, the clink of the spoon loud in the hush. "You don't quit, even when they kick you down." Mia listened, her hands wrapped around a warm mug, feeling a flicker of purpose she hadn't known since her art school dreams fizzled under financial strain. The diner became her proving ground. Len guided her, not with handouts, but with challenges. "Fix this place," he said, handing her a binder of financials. "Make it yours." Mia dove in, her nights filled with spreadsheets and supplier calls. She renegotiated contracts, cutting costs by 15%. She retrained the staff, fostering a team vibe. No more shouting matches in the kitchen. The menu got a facelift, comfort food with a twist, like truffle fries and vegan sliders, drawing hipsters and families alike. The diner's Yelp rating climbed from 2.8 to 4.5 stars in 3 months. Customers noticed the change. Booths filled faster, tips doubled. Mia's confidence grew, though doubts lingered. "Am I really cut out for this?" she'd wonder, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. Tony, meanwhile, was unraveling. Len made sure the industry not discreet emails to restaurant owners, a tip to a local reporter, a small expose. The copyright ran in the Philly food blog. Diner manager ousted for skimming. Tony's applications went nowhere. He ended up bussing tables at a dive bar, his ego crushed under the weight of dirty dishes. One night, drowning in cheap whiskey, he saw Mia's face on a local TV segment about the diner's turnaround. He threw his glass at the wall, the shatter drowned out by bar noise. His regret a bitter pill. Len became Mia's mentor, meeting weekly at his loft. He taught her negotiation, reading people, spotting opportunities. "Trust your gut," he'd say, leaning forward, his eyes sharp despite the lines on his face. She soaked it up, her sketchbooks now filled with business plans alongside old charcoal drawings. But growth wasn't smooth. A rival diner poached her best cook, and a fridge failure cost $5,000 in spoiled stock. Mia paced the storeroom, heart racing, until she recalled Len's advice: problems are just puzzles. She hired a new cook, a culinary school dropout with raw talent, and switched suppliers, turning the loss into a better deal. The diner's success caught eyes. A local investor, tipped off by Len, offered to back a second location. Mia hesitated. The expansion was daunting. Late one night, over takeout on Len's loft, she confessed her fear. "What if I screw it up?" Len chuckled, his laugh raspy. "You will. Everyone does. Then you fix it." Emboldened, she signed the deal. The second diner opened in a trendy neighborhood. Its opening night electrical live music, packed tables, the scent of fresh paint and sizzling burgers. Mia worked the floor, her smile genuine, the weight of her old life gone. Len's health began to falter, a cough that wouldn't quit. Doctor visits he downplayed. "Just age," he'd grumble, but Mia saw the fatigue in his eyes. She pushed him to see specialists, even drove him once. Their conversation light but laced with unspoken gratitude. He opened up about his pasta sister lost to illness, a family he'd drifted from. Mia, who'd grown up in foster care, understood that ache. She helped him reconnect, organizing a dinner with his estranged niece. The reunion, in a cozy Italian spot, was tearful, joyful. Len hugged Mia after, whispering, "Your family now." The diner chain grew to 4 locations, each a community hub. Mia's vision: affordable food, fair wages, drew loyal staff and customers. At a City Awards gala, in a sleek black dress, she accepted a Rising Star plaque, her voice steady. "This started with one honest choice. It's proof kindness pays off." Len, in the audience, clapped hardest, his pride palpable despite his frail frame. Tony resurfaced once, outside the original diner. Mia was locking up when he approached, haggard, reeking of stale beer. "You think you're better than me?" he slurred. Mia met his gaze, calm. "I just kept going." "You didn't." She walked away, her steps light, power in her stride. Len passed a year later, his heart giving out. His will left Mia a trust fund, not millions, but enough to secure her future, with a note: "Keep proving them wrong." She cried reading it, then poured the funds into a non-profit, mentoring at-risk youth and business skills. The diner chain hit 10 locations, each with a mural of Philly's skyline, a nod to Len's love for the city. Years later, Mia sat in the original diner, now a flagship, watching a young waitress return a customer's lost keys. She smiled, seeing herself, from a fired nobody to a leader. Her life was a testament to one act of decency, rippling into a legacy of justice and hope.